dark shadows and in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast, we are the brave and bold. What is this? Should I just switch this out? Hey, I think I just figured out the buzzing in my headset. I think I just gotta switch this thing out. Motherfucker, I'll be damned.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Take control of your destiny. Understand your past, put your present in context, and know your future with a twist. Check out the designs and watch the videos about Abracast Tarot Card Deck on Advertise.com. When you order a deck, get a free exclusive bonus tarot card. Also, sign into the mailing list to get a free ebook about the Abracast Tarot Card Deck and other bonus content. Visit the storefront on Abracast.com.
Welcome to the Abracast. I'm John Towers, and we're going to be continuing our series that we have here with Liber 4 from Aleister Crowley. It's entitled Magick with a K. It's also known as Liber ABA. In my brain, it's also Liber ABA. I don't know if anyone else calls it that. So Liber ABA comes in 4 parts. We covered the first part. I think we did it in like 3 or 4 episodes, and it was all the mysticism stuff. So the second part, this is part 2 of the second part, and it's Magick, the elemental theory. So we're just going to continue with this. Let's see, where did we leave off? We left off here with, holy oil. So we're going to move into wands. He gets quite wordy in this section. So we're going to talk about the wands here. We're going to get ready. But now, if you're playing at home, is the part where you should summon your vessel of the art. You can grab these on the website, abracast.com, if you want. It includes shipping, but I only ship in the States, bros. I'm not shipping overseas. Anyhow, let's get into this thing, huh? The wand. Magical will is in its essence twofold, for it presupposes a beginning and an end. To will, to be a thing, is to admit that you are not a thing. Hence, to will anything but the supreme thing is to wander still further from it. Any will but that to give up the self to the beloved is black magic. Yet, this surrender is so simple an act that to our complex minds it is the most difficult of all acts, and hence training is necessary. Further, self-surrender must not be less than the all-self. One must not come before the altar of the Most High with an impure or an imperfect offering. As it is written, to wait thee is the end, not the beginning. This training may lead through all sorts of complications, varying according to the nature of the student, and hence it may be necessary for him at any moment to will all sorts of things, which to others might seem unconnected with the goal. Thus, it is not a priority. Obvious why a billiard player should need a file. Since then, we may want, quote, anything, unquote. Let us see to it that our will is strong enough to obtain anything we want without the loss of time. It is therefore necessary to develop the will to its highest point, even though the last task, but one is the total surrender of this will. Partial surrender of an imperfect will is of no account in Magick. The will being a level or a leveler, a fulcrum is necessary, and this fulcrum is the main aspiration of the student to attain. All wills which are not dependent upon this principle will are so many leakages. They are like fat to an athlete. The majority of the will in this world are ataxic. They cannot coordinate their mental muscles to make a proposed movement. And they have no real will, only a set of wishes, and many contradict others. The victim wobbles from one to the other, and it is no less wobbling because the movements may be occasionally very violent. And the end of life, the movements cancel each other out. Nothing has been achieved except the one thing of which the victim is not conscious, and that is the destruction of his own character. The conforming of indecision, such a one is torn limb from limb by Korozon. How then is the will to be trained? All these wishes and whims, capricious inclinations, tendencies, appetites must be detected, examined, judged by the standard of whether they help or hinder the main purpose, treated accordingly. Now, there is very great difficulty to be overcome in the training of the mind, and perhaps the greatest is forgetfulness. Special practices for training of the memory may be of some use as a preliminary for persons whose memory is naturally poor. This is like remember the game where you have all the cards in different faces and you have to flip them over? And then you flip them back over, and then you flip a card, and then you have to like remember what card corresponds to, like what the matching card. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sure it's just like the fucking match game or something. I don't remember. It's like a luminosity game or fucking concentration. I don't know. Above all, practice. What he's really talking about is Liber 3, which I have. I actually need to do another Liber 3 challenge. I'm gonna maybe do it tonight. We'll see. Above all, practices of Liber 3 must be done again and again, for the practice is developed. Not only vigilance, but those inhibiting centers in the brain, which are, according to some psychologists, the mainspring of the mechanism by which civilized man has raised himself above the savage. So far it has been spoken, as it were, in the negative. Aaron's rod has become a serpent and swallowed the serpents of the other magicians. It is now unnecessary to turn to it once more into a rod. I actually write about this. Well, I write and draw about it. This instance, what he's talking about, Aaron's rod turning into a serpent and eating the serpents of the other magicians, is in my graphic novel, The Ages. Anyhow, let me take this opportunity to lubricate. This magical will is the wand in your hand by which the great work is accomplished, by which the daughter may not merely set upon the throne of the mother, but assumed into the highest. The magic wand is thus the principal weapon of the magus, and the name of the wand is the magical oath. The will being twofolds is in Chokmah, who is the logos, the word. Hence, have said the word is the will. Thoth, the lord of magic, is also the lord of speech, and Hermes, the messenger, bears the caduceus. Word should express will, hence the mystic name of the probationer is the expression of his highest will. There are, of course, few probationers who understand themselves sufficiently to be able to formulate this will to themselves. And therefore, in the end of their probation, they choose a new name. It's convenient, therefore, for the student to express his will by taking magical oaths. Since such an oath is irrevocable, it should be well considered, and it is better not to take any oath permanently, because with increase of understanding may come a perception of the incompatibility of the lesser oath with the greater. This reminds me of who said it on the Game of Thrones? Talk about, you swear an oath to this person, you swear an oath to this person, you swear an oath to this guy over here. Pretty soon, none of them matter, none of them make any sense. Maybe it was Jamie. It sounds like a Jamie Lannister thing to say. Another great point in this consideration of magic vows is to keep them in their proper place. They must be taken for clearly defined purposes, a clearly understood purpose, and they must never be allowed to go beyond it. The best vow, the most universal application, is the holy vow of obedience. For not only does it lead to perfect freedom, but it is training in that surrender, which is the last task. This is, to me, to my understanding, is pretty unthelemic. I don't even know what to do with this whole statement. We've read books upon books upon books and works upon works about how do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. And now he's saying that the best vow is the most universal application is to vow obedience. And I'm like, maybe it's obedience to one's will, one's idea, one's goal, maybe. I guess that makes a little bit of sense. The real magical oath cannot be broken. You think it can, but it can't. This is the advantage of a real magical oath. However far you go around, you arrive at the end just the same, and all you have done by attempting to break your oath is to involve yourself in the most frightful trouble. It cannot be too clearly understood that such is the nature of things. It does not depend on the will of any persons, however powerful or exalted, nor can the force of their great oaths avail against the weakest oath of the most trivial of beginners. To attempt to interfere in the magical will of another person would be wicked if it were not absurd. One may attempt to build up will when before nothing existed but a chaos of whims. Oh, I'm preparing something. I need this citation. Sorry about that. I'm preparing something for somebody. But once organization has taken place, it is sacred. As Blake says, quote, everything that lives is holy, unquote. and hence is the creation of life, is the most sacred of tasks, but does not matter very much to the creator. That it is what it is that he creates. There is room in the universe for both the spider and the fly. It is from the rubbish heap of Choronzoan that one selects the material for a god. This is the ultimate analysis of the mystery of redemption, and it is possibly the real reason for existence. If existence can it be called to form, or if you like, of the ego. I need to fucking put an asterisk next to this. I'm doing so much work nowadays, guys. It is astonishing that this typical cry, quote, "I am I," unquote, is the cry of which above all is not I. It was the master whose will was so powerful that it is lightest expression the deaf heard and the dumb spake. Lepers were cleansed and the dead arose to life. That the master and no other who at the supreme moment in his agony could cry, quote, "Not my will but thine be done," unquote. So in light of all that, I think I would add that the one, as we know from our tarot cards, is a masculine phallic symbol. It's a kingly symbol, just as much as the cup is a feminine symbol. So now we're going to talk about the cups, or the cup. So as we're bumping through this, I want you guys to just remember the Kabbalah episodes we've done, the sex magic episodes we've done, and the tarot card episodes that we've done. As the magic wand is the will, the wisdom, the word of the magician, so is the magical cup his understanding. This is a cup in which it is written, "Father, if it be thy will, let this cup pass from me. And again can ye drink of the cup that I drink of." Hear, hear. I think there's going to be a lot of this in this section. But it is also, the cup in the hand of Our Lady Babylon, and the cup of the sacrament. The cup is full of bitterness and of blood and of intoxication. The understanding of the magus and his link with the invisible. On the passive side, his will errs actively by opposing itself to the universal will. His understanding errs passively when it receives influence from that which is not the ultimate truth. In the beginning, the cup of the student is almost empty, and even such truth as he receives may leak away and be lost. But they say the Venetians made the Venetian, God damn it, Liber 3, made glasses which change color if poison was put into them. Of such a glass must the student make his cup. Very little experience on the mystic path will show him that of all the impressions he receives, none is true. Either they are false in themselves or they are wrongly interpreted in his mind. There is one truth and only one. All other thoughts are false. And he advances in the knowledge of his mind. He will come to understand that its whole structure is so faulty that it is quite incapable, even in the most exalted moods of truth. He will recognize that any thought merely establishes a relationship between the ego and the non-ego. Even the laws of nature are but to conditions of thought. And as current as thought is the blood of the mind, it is said that the magical cup is filled with the blood of the saints. All thought must be offered up as a sacrifice. The cup can hardly be described as a weapon. It is round like the pentacle, not straight like the wand and the dagger. Reception, not protection, is its nature. So that which is round is to him a symbol of influence from the higher. The circle symbolizes the infinite, and every cross or tau represents the finite. That which is foursquare shows the finite fixed unto itself, and the reason the altar is foursquare is that the solid basis from which all operations proceed, one form. The magic cup has a sphere beneath the bowl, and it is supported upon a conical base. The cup, crescent, sphere, cone represents three principles: the moon, the sun, and fire. This is the cup of purification, as Zoroaster says. Quote, so therefore the first priest who governeth the works of fire must sprinkle with the lustral water of the loud resounding sea. It is the sea that purifies the world, and the great sea is the Kabbalah, a name of Binah, understanding. It is by this understanding of the Magus that his work is purified, and Binah, moreover, is the moon, and the bowl of this cup is shaped like the moon. The moon is the path of Gimel through which the influences from the crown descend upon the son of Tippereth. This is all pure Kabbalah, Kabbalistic tree of life. And if you guys want to know, you can find this stuff if you sign into the mailing list on the website. I have it sends you to a special section of a hidden section, an occulted section of the website with a bunch of graphic elements from the show. And in there you can find all this tree of life and all the different paths and the different triangles and all this stuff. I basically just scanned in my sketchbook. It's actually, I think it's very interesting. And just a quick reminder, if you're like, what, the Kabbalah, I don't understand what you're talking about, just go to the show and or go to the featured topic links on the website and check out the Kabbalah featured topic link. There's many, many shows on the Kabbalah listed right there. It's all very interesting stuff. And this is based on the pyramid of fire, which symbolizes the aspiration of the student. Concerning the water in the cup, it may be said that it's just as the wand should be perfectly rigid, the ideal solid, so should the water be the ideal fluid. The wand is erect and must extend into infinity, and the surface of the water is flat and must extend into the infinity. One is the line and the other is the plane. But as the wand is weak without breadth, so is the water false without depth. The understanding of the Magus must include all things, and the understanding must be indefinitely profound. Understanding the structuralization of knowledge. The magic cup is the flower, and the lotus which opens to the sun and which collects the dew. It's funny. It's not funny, but it's cool. If you look at Crowley's tarot deck, the Thoth deck, he's got all this flower imagery all over the cups, the cup, the suit of cups. This lotus is in the hand of Isis, the great mother, and the symbol similar to the cup in the hand of Our Lady Babylon. There is also the lotuses of the human body according to the Hindu system of physiology. There is a lotus of 3 petals in the sacrum, in which the Kundalini lies asleep. This lotus is the receptacle of reproductive force. There is also the six-petaled lotus opposite of the navel, which receives the forces which nourish the body. There is also a lotus in the solar plexus, which receives the nervous forces. And the six-petaled lotus in the heart corresponds to the Tifereth and receives those vital forces which are connected with the blood. The 16-petaled lotus opposite of the larynx receives the nourishment needed by the breath. And the two-petaled lotus of the pineal gland receives the nourishment needed by thought. While above the junction of the cranial structure is the sublime lotus of 1,001 petals, which receives the influence from on high, in which in the adept, the awakened Kundalini takes her pleasure with the Lord of all. All of these lotuses are figured by the magic cup. The magic cup must have no lid, yet it must be kept veiled most carefully at all times, except when invocation of the highest is being made. The cup is also hidden from the profane. The wand must be kept secret, lest the profane, fearing it, should succeed in breaking it. The cup, lest wishing to touch it. Woo. The cup, lest wishing to touch it. He should defile it. Thus, ultimately, the wand is a binding and a limitation. So the cup is an expansion into the infinite. This is the danger of the cup and must necessarily be open to all. And yet, if anything to put into it which is out of proportion, unbalanced, or impure, it takes hurt. Since the best is the water but a reflection, how tremendously important it becomes. And it should be still. If the cup is shaken, the light will be broken up. Therefore, the cup is placed upon the altar, which is foursquare, will multiplied by will, the confirmation of the will in the magical oath. Its fixation is the law.
Are you interested in the occult, history, conspiracy, and violence? Learn more at Advertise.com. Find more episodes on this topic. Sign up for the mailing list for bonus content. Get access to the show archive. And visit the storefront for tarot cards, merch, and books. Learn more at Advertise.com.
All right, we're moving into the sword. The word of the Lord is quick and powerful, and sharper than a two-edged sword. As the wand is Chakma, the will, the father, the cup is understanding, the mother, Bina, and so the magical sword is reason, the sun, the sixth Sephiroth of the Rausch. And we shall see the pinnacle corresponds to Malkuth, the daughter. We remember this from our tarot card talks. The wand is kingly, the cup is queenly, and the sword is the knight. And the pentacles are transitionary. The magic sword is the analytical faculty directed against any demon. It attacks his complexity. Only the simple can withstand the sword. As we are below the abyss, this weapon is then entirely destructive. It divides Satan against Satan. It is only in the lower forms of magic, the purely human forms, the sword has become so important a weapon. A dagger should be sufficient. This is super interesting, and it reminds me of the Babylon Working, where Jack Parsons is running around his mansion with a magic sword, trying to fight a spirit that is encroaching inside of his mansion. But the mind of a man is normally so important to him that the sword is actually the largest of his weapon. Happy is he who can make the dagger suffice. The hilt of the sword should be made of copper. The guard is composed of 2 crescents of the waxing and the waning moon, and back to back. The spheres are placed between them, forming an equilateral triangle with the sphere of the pommel. The sword is straight, pointed, and sharp, right up to the guard, and it is made of steel to equilibrate the hilt. For steel is the metal of Mars, as copper is of Venus. Those 2 planets are male and female, and thus reflect the wand of the cup and the cup through the much lower sense. We're going to see here in a second, we're also the white and black suns or moons of Baphomet, Chesed, and kindness, and Gevora, strength. We see these pop up from the Baphomet episode that was so long ago. It was one of the earlier episodes. Baphomet, and obviously these are 2 of the Sephiroths from the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, from any and from all of the Kabbalah episodes. The hilt is of Venus for love, and the motive of the ruthless analysis. If this were not so, the sword would be a black magical weapon. The pommel of the sword is in Doth. Doth is like this hidden Sephiroth that's between the supernal triangle and the ethical triangle. Again, sign into the mailing list to get all these maps and all this stuff, or just go listen to these episodes. The guard extends to Chesed and Gabora, and the point is in Malkuth. Some magi make the... What? All right, there you go, baby. There you go. Lay down. All right. I'm being attacked by my cat. The guard, where was that? The guard extends to Chesed and Gabora, and the point is in Malkuth. Some magi make the 3 spheres of lead, tin, and gold, respectively. The moons are silver, and the grip contains quicksilver, thus making the sword symbolic of the 7 planets. But this is fantasy and an affection. Whoso, quote, whoso taketh the sword shall perish by the sword, unquote, is not a mystical threat, but a mystical promise. It is our own complexity that must be destroyed. God damn it. Here is another parable. Peter, the stone of the philosophers, cut off the ear of Malchus, and the servant of the high priest. The ear is the organ of the spirit. In analysis, the spiritual part of Malkuth must be separated from the philosophical stone. And the Christus, the anointed one, makes it whole once more. Solve et coagula. Again, this is Baphomet, which again, Alephus Levi's Baphomet in the Baphomet episode, the arm pointing to the white moon of Chesed is solve, and the arm pointing to the black moon of Gover is coagulate. It is noticeable that this takes place at the arrest of Christ, who is the son, the Rausch, immediately before his crucifixion. Rausch, we are going to be talking about a lot over this episode. A Rausch is a Kabbalistic term for the essential parts of the human spirit. It's this thing is nefesh, raush, and neshama. A raush just means the wind or breath, and sometimes the mind of a human. The sword or dagger is attributed to air, all wandering, all penetrating, but unstable. Not a phenomenon suitable like fire, not a chemical combination like water, but a mixture of gases. The sword, necessary as it is to the beginner, but a crude weapon, its function is to keep off the enemy or to force a passage through them. And through it must be wielded to gain admission to a palace. It cannot be worn at the marriage feast. One might say the pinnacle is the bread of life and the sword is the knife which cuts it up. But one must have ideas, but one must criticize them. The sword, too, is the weapon with which one strikes terror into the demons and dominates them. One must keep the ego lord of the impressions. One must not allow the circle to be broken by the demon, and one must not allow any one idea to carry one away. It will readily be seen how very elementary and false all this is, but the beginner, it is necessary. In all dealings with demons, the point of the sword is kept downwards, and it should not be used for invocation, as it taught in certain schools of magic. If the sword raised towards the crown, it is no longer really a sword. The crown cannot be divided. Certainly the sword should not be lifted. The sword may, however, be clasped in both hands and kept steady and erect, symbolizing the thought has become one with the single aspiration and burnt up like a flame. The flame is the shin, the Raush Allahim, not the mere Raush Adam. Divine, not the human consciousness. The magician cannot wield the sword unless the crown is on his head. Those magicians who have attempted to make the sword the sole or even the principal weapon have only destroyed themselves. Not by the deconstruction of combination, but by the deconstruction or the destruction of division. Weakness overcomes strength. The sword has been the great weapon of the last century. Every idea has been attacked by thinkers, and none has withstood attack. Hence, civilization crumbles. No settled principles remain to this day. All constructive statesmanship and empiricism or opportunism. It has been doubted whether there are any real relation between mother and child, any real distinction between male and female. Well, I have to put an asterisk next to this fucking thing. God damn it. On the blade of on the blade of the magical sword is etched the name Egla. It's formed from the initials of the sentence Ate Gibor Lilahem Adonai. To thee be the power unto the ages, O my Lord. I'm going to read that one more time. I'm sorry, I'm not going to read that one more time. I'm going to give the microphone to Pastor Larry Solomon. He's going to read it one more time. Attack Gabor, Leohem Adonai. To thee be the power of the ages, O my Lord. So this thing in, Nota Quan is just a way to signify a phrase. It's a group of letters and usually the initials of these letters. Kabbalists use this method all the time. I just don't know how to pronounce it. And the acid which eats into the seal should be oil of vitriol. And vitriol is a notoquine of Vista Intinora Terre Rectificando Innovaes Occultum Lapidum. That is to say, by investigating everything and bringing it into the harmony of proportion, you will find the hidden stone, the same stone of the philosophers, of which mention has already been made, which turns all into gold. This oil which can eat into the steel is further that which is written, as an acid eats into steel, so am I unto the spirit of man. The center of Rausch being the heart. It is seen that this sword of the Rausch may be thrust into the magician by his own heart. But there is a subsequent task of which it is spoken. Quote, he shall await the sword of the beloved and bear his throat for the stroke. Unquote. In the throat is the doth, the throne of Rausch. Doth is knowledge, is final destruction of the knowledge, opens the gate of the city of the pyramids. It is also written, let the woman be girt with the sword before me. But this reverts to overcoming emotion by the clarity of perception. So Jack Parsons also talked about this woman girt with a sword, and this was back in the Liberty of Thelema and Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword episodes. It was so good. When I was reading that, Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword, those episodes, I gave myself fucking, like, what do they call them? Goosebumps? I gave myself goosebumps reading from them. They're so awesome. Back to the book though. It is also spoken of the sword of Adonai, that hath 4 blades, and the blade of a thunderbolt, the blade of a pylon, and the blade of a serpent, and the blade of a phallus. But this sword is not for an ordinary magician. This is a sword flaming every way that keeps Eden. And the sword and the wand and the cup are concealed. So although the being of the magician is blasted by the thunderbolts and poisoned by the serpent, it is the same time the organs whose union is the supreme sacrifice are left in him. At the coming of Adonai, the individual is destroyed in both senses. He is shattered into 1,000 pieces, yet at the same time united with the simple. This thing about the flaming sword that keeps Eden is after the fall of God, or after the fall of Adam and Eve, God stationed Uriel to the gates of Eden with a fiery sword to guard against mankind. I guess it was a guard against them. He cast them out, and then he posted Uriel with his flaming sword to keep them from coming back in. I guess sneaking back in. It is also called the Sword of Expulsion. It's actually a sword that's on the cover of my first graphic novel, The Heart of Abracax. Uriel is all over the place. Also in the first chapter of the Ages. The Lord Adonai, which is Hebrew for my Lord, has descended from heaven. He has descended from the almighty heaven, from the supernal Eden, and the Sahasrara chakra, the man with a, quote, shout, a voice, and a trump against airy cymbals, for it is the air that carries sound. The sound refers to those heard by the adept and the moment of rapture. It is most accurately pictured in the tarot trump called the angel, which corresponds to the letter shin, in the letter of the spirit and of the breath. So all this tarot card, shin, angel nonsense, you know, if I'm going to link all this stuff up to my comic books, like, you can find this all in the first non-standard assembly graphic novel. And when he says the angel card, most of us nowadays would, it's the temperance card. It's a stunning card of like this angel. I'm not going to get into it. The whole mind of man is rent by the advent of Adonai. And it's once again caught into the union with him in the air, the Rausch. It is a function of the cup to interpret the perceptions and the tendencies. The sword frees these perceptions from a web of emotion. The perceptions are meaningless in and of themselves, and the emotions are worse. They delude their victim into supposing the significance. I gotta put an asterisk next to that. Every emotion is an obsession. The most horrible blasphemies is attributed to any emotion to God in the microcosm, or to the pure soul in the microcosm. I'm sorry, God in the macrocosm, or to the pure soul in the microcosm. The magician must therefore make himself absolutely free in this respect. It is the constant practice of demons to attempt to terrify and to shock and to disgust and to allure. Against all this, he must oppose the steel of the sword. If he has gotten rid of the ego idea in this task, will be comparatively easy. Unless he has done so, it will be almost impossible. But it is too much to expect that the young magician to practice attachments to the distasteful. Let him first become indifferent, and let him endeavor to see facts, as simple as he would see them if they were historical. Let him avoid the imaginative interpretation of any facts, and let him not put himself in the place of people of whom the facts are related. Or if he does so, let it be done only for the purposes of comprehension, of sympathy. And let the student practice observation of those things which normally would cause him emotion. And let him, having written a careful description of what he sees, check it by the aid of some person familiar with such sights. Surgical operations and dancing girls are fruitful fields for the beginner. In reading emotional books such as are inflicted on children, let him always endeavor to see the event from a standpoint of opposite of that of the author. Yet let him not emulate the partial emancipated child who accompanied the picture of the Colosseum, that there was one poor little lion who hadn't gotten any Christian except for the instance. Adverse criticism in the first step, the second must go further. Man, this really just ties into all the stuff we've been talking about in our media manipulation series, I think. Having sympathized sufficiently with both lions and Christians, let him open his eyes to that which his sympathy had masked hitherto. That the picture is abominably conceived, abominably composed, abominably drawn, and abominably colored, as it is pretty sure to be. Let him further study those masters in science or in art who have observed with minds Untinkered by emotion. All right, I'm John. This is the Abercast. I guess that will do it. We'll wrap this thing up next episode.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Please send an email or find us on social media and let us know what you think about the show. We would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star rate and review wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find Stigmata Studios, graphic, novels, and comic books at Advertise.com.